Greetings and welcome, mis amigos. We are going over last night's quest. We were solving absolute value equations. But first, let us simplify. So looking at this, there's minus signs all over the place. Let's kind of PEMDAS this, so you guys are writing this down, following along. This is good stuff. So I've got the opposite of negative 5 times negative 7 is positive 35. What does absolute value do to a positive number? Nothing, right? It just leaves it alone. Leave me alone. And then this minus sign was on the outside of the absolute value, so it looks like negative 35 would be the result of simplifying that expression. So absolute value, in case you don't remember, is the distance a number is from zero. Distance is measured with a positive value, Ethan. And right, distance is positive. It makes sense. You could eventually look at vectors in the future. Vectors, Pooja, are a direction and a magnitude. So it's kind of like it will tell you move this way, this many feet, and negative magnitude does count for vectors. But with regard to distance, it's positive. And so when I ask what's the distance 35 is from 0, I get 35. Using that logic, let's solve some equations with absolute value. Now, super legal. Right, we can't do that. Also, sometimes people will try this. You guys didn't even know this was a wrong thing you could do. Sometimes people are like, oh, absolute value will just make this positive. We can't do that because I don't know what Q is. Absolute value is going to make Q minus 8 positive, but who knows what that is? And Q minus 8 is going to be different than Q plus 8, most likely. So what I have to do is break this into two cases where either the inside of the absolute value was positive and the absolute value did nothing to it. So in this case, Q minus 8 equals 14. Oh yeah, good, as in buen idea. Or the inside of this was maybe equal to negative 14, and then the absolute value made that positive 14. So in that case, I would write that by saying Q minus 8 equals negative 14. So the way we deal with absolute value, once it's by itself on one side of the equation, I break it up into two cases, one in which it's equal to the positive, one in which it's equal to the negative. I had a question on Wednesday. How do I know when I break up an equation? Does anyone remember how to answer that question? What clued me into the fact that I had to break this up? These absolute value bars, okay? That's what makes it different. And now I just solved both of these cases normal style. What's the inverse of subtracting 8? Add 8, add them, both sides. And hey, conveniently, that's the same first step over here. What do you know? What do you know? So I'm going to have Q equals 14 plus 8 is 22. Or, because there's two possible answers, Q equals, looks like negative 6. So I get two answers to this problem. Yeah, so that's interesting. A math problem with two answers. Also, if I did a check, 22 minus 8 is 14. Abs val of 14 is 14. And how about negative 6? Negative 6 and negative 8 is negative 14. And the absolute value of negative 14 is positive 14. If I plugged negative 6 in for Q, negative 6 minus 8 would have been negative 14. Right. So I was just kind of doing a verbal check. Oh, they asked us to graph it. Wow. These are graphs on a number line, and my number lines are super simple. So when you have a number line, I want to see 0 on it. And then let's see, looks like I got to have 22, and negative 6 is going to be a lot closer to 0 than 22 is. And when I plot my points, I'm going to plot a point at the negative 6, right? That represents a solution, and at 20 dose, because 22 was a solution. So number line solution, might not be that interesting yet. We'll end up next chapter doing a lot more with number lines. Let's see, do I have one more problem? Actually, I have two. Yeah, I'm going to skip 20 for sake of time and jump down to 24. Good request. All right. Now, this problem is muy difícil. Can I do this? Not yet. Not yet. I don't break this up until I get the absolute value by itself. And so, Devin, what I'm going to do is I pretend that this absolute value, I pretend like this is my variable. Imagine that was x, and this just said 9x plus 8. I want to get rid of that 9 and that 8 first. And so I can get rid of the 8 by subtracting it from both sides. So I will have a 90. No. 90 is like 90. 9 times the absolute value of 4p plus 2 equals 27. How could I get rid of that 9? Yeah, it's being multiplied. I recommended not trying to distribute over absolute value because you'll be wrong half the time. So let's just do it the right way all the time, you know? Learn one way that works every time. Divide by 9 because division is the inverse of multiplication. So I'll have abs_val of 4p plus 2 is equal to 3. Now, if this ended up equaling a negative number, what would I say? I'd say no solution because an absolute value can only ever equal a non-negative. It could equal 0 or any positive number. But since it's positive and I've got absolute value, I break it up into two cases. Either, and notice this is exactly the work I want to see when you guys do this, either 4p plus 2 is 3 or 4p plus 2 is negative 3. Because you're such a positive person? Is that why you don't like the negative one? Makes sense. Makes sense. And now I've got two separate problems and I can solve these normal style. So let's, should I divide by 4? Nah, that kind of makes fractions. It's legally permissible, but just like many things in life, a lot of things are legal, but not wise. Better idea. Let's deal with that 2 first. I like it. So I'll have 4p equals... Oh! Nope. Nope. And now I could divide by 4, and I'm cool with fractions showing up at the very end, because at least I don't have to deal with it. Deal with it, right? So p is equal to 1/4. And hey, let's solve this equation over here. And actually, what's funny is it'll have exactly the same steps. Subtract 2, look at you. What you do algebra, it's amazing. And here's the, here's a -5 outcome. Right, that became more negative, Devin. And then div 4. Man, 2 fraction answers. But like I said, at least they showed up at the very end. We didn't have to deal with them. And so I throw an or between there, and voila. Problem's done. Done, son. All right, thanks for watching. Mis amigos de internet.